Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into a book that's really shaped how people connect for, well, generations. Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Right.
Now, you might already know this one pretty well, or maybe you're thinking, oh, that old thing.
Yeah, a bit dated, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But our goal isn't just to, rehash it. We want to really dig into the most powerful, maybe even surprising ideas, the stuff you can actually use, like right away.
Absolutely. And it's not just some dusty old book from, 1937?
Mhm.
The fact that it's sold millions, translated everywhere, still resonates.
Yeah.
That tells you something important, I think, about how we tick, how we relate.
Yeah.
So we want to go deeper than the kind of surface level advice and pull out those core principles that still really work today.
Okay, let's get into it then. One of the first big things Carnegie hits on is criticism.
Right.
It feels almost instinctive sometimes, doesn't it? To point out what someone's doing wrong.
Oh, totally. It's the default for many people.
But he argues pretty strongly that, well, criticism often just doesn't work. It can even blow up in your face.
It's fascinating when you think about how deeply we believe we're right, you
Yeah.
know? Carnegie uses these wild examples like Two-Gun Crowley
Yeah.
and Al Capone. I mean, these guys were notorious criminals.
Right?
But Crowley apparently saw himself as like a kind soul underneath it all. And Capone genuinely thought he was doing good, providing a service.
It's almost hard to believe.
It is. But it really highlights how we justify things to ourselves.
And it's not just extreme cases. Carnegie mentions Warden Lewis laws.
From Sing Sing.
Yeah, and laws observe that most inmates just didn't see themselves as bad people. They always had reasons, justifications.
It points straight to that basic human need to see ourselves in a positive light. So when you criticize someone, you're basically attacking their self-image.
And the reaction is?
Defensive. Almost always.
Hmm.
Think about that story, George B. Johnston, the construction supervisor with the hard hats.
Oh yeah, the safety hats.
Right. Ordering people. Didn't work. But when he changed his approach, asked them about comfort, how the hats felt, then he got cooperation.
It shows that difference, doesn't it, between just forcing compliance and actually getting people on board willingly.
Exactly. Extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation right there.
And the history examples really drive this home. Theodore Roosevelt, not exactly shy with his opinions.
Oh,
He laid into President Taft pretty hard.
he did.
And the result? Taft just doubled down, insisted he was right. It even split their party. Why do you think it's so tough, even for leaders, to just hold back on criticism sometimes?
That's a really good question. I mean, maybe it's that immediate reaction. You see something wrong, you want to fix it, correct it right now.
Without thinking about the other person's view.
Or how they'll take it, yeah. Look at the Teapot Dome scandal.
Okay.
Mrs. Fall, her husband was right in the thick of it, but she vehemently denied he'd done anything wrong, despite all the evidence. It just shows how powerful that resistance to admitting fault or having fault pointed out can be. Criticism often just makes that wall higher.
But Carnegie also flips this, looks at it from a personal growth angle. Abraham Lincoln apparently wasn't always so diplomatic early on.
Not at all. He wrote these anonymous, kind of satirical attacks.
And one almost led to a duel.
Yeah, with a guy named James Shields, and it seems like that was a huge wake-up call for Lincoln. He saw how damaging that kind of public ridicule could be.
So we learned from it.
Big time.
Huh.
After that, he almost never criticized anyone publicly, even during the Civil War with generals who were, let's be honest, often messing up badly.
McClellan, Pope, Burnside, the list goes on.
Hooker, Meade. Must have been incredibly frustrating.
Unbelievably frustrating.
But his approach was just remarkably restrained.
Didn't he write a really angry letter to Meade after Gettysburg when Meade didn't pursue Lee?
He did. A real scorcher, apparently. But crucially,
He never sent it.
he never sent it. He knew it would probably just make Meade defensive, maybe even bitter, and damage their working relationship. It shows incredible self-control, emotional intelligence, really.
And that connects to managing our own impulses, right?
Yeah.
Like Mark Twain writing angry letters he never mailed.
Exactly. It's a way to vent the feeling without causing the damage. Recognizing that just expressing criticism, even if you feel it's totally justified, often does more harm than good to the relationship.
Okay, so boiling it all down. The first fundamental principle, the big takeaway from this part.
Don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Simple to say.
Harder to do.
Much harder to do consistently. It really takes conscious effort to shift how you react.
Okay, so if we're not criticizing, what do we do? This leads into what Carnegie calls the big secret of dealing with people.
Right. It's not just about avoiding the negative, it's about proactively building the positive.
So what's the secret? He talks about tapping into something fundamental.
Yeah, what really drives people. And he argues it's this deep-seated desire to feel important, to feel valued.
He brings in Freud.
Right. Freud's idea of the desire to be great.
And Dewey's desire to be important. It's interesting how that plays out today, isn't it? Social media validation, career striving.
Oh, absolutely. It's all around us. It's not just wanting attention. It's wanting to feel like your existence, your contribution actually matters.
William James called it a craving to be appreciated.
A craving, not just a preference, a fundamental human hunger.
Like that story about Carnegie's father and the prize pigs.
Exactly. The pigs didn't care about the blue ribbons.
Obviously.
But for his father, those ribbons meant recognition, accomplishment, a sense of importance. It's uniquely human.
And this desire pops up everywhere, good and bad.
Totally. Lincoln studying relentlessly, Dickens writing, Christopher Wren building cathedrals, Rockefeller giving away millions.
All driven partly by wanting to make a mark, to be significant.
But it can go wrong, too. People joining gangs, seeking notoriety. Sometimes that's a twisted way of trying to feel important or recognized.
And that example of Mrs. McKinley becoming an invalid just to get constant attention, that's pretty extreme.
It is. It shows how powerful that need is. Carnegie even suggests some people might retreat into mental illness, into a fantasy world, partly to find that feeling of importance they can't get in reality.
Wow. That really underscores the power here.
It does, which is why using this principle positively is so incredibly effective. Look at Charles Schwab.
The SEAL guy.
Yeah.
Hugely successful.
Immensely. And Carnegie says his secret was his knack for arousing enthusiasm.
How? Appreciation and encouragement.
Exactly. He made it a rule never to criticize, and he was, in Carnegie's words, hearty in his approbation and lavish in his praise.
It's such a stark contrast to how many people operate, isn't it? Where the only feedback is negative.
Right. That story about the farm woman who finally served her husband and son's hay for dinner.
Because they never once commented on her cooking.
Yeah. Just to get some kind of reaction, some acknowledgement that she was even there doing the work. We all need that positive feedback.
You see it in relationships all the time, too. Carnegie mentions lack of appreciation being a big factor when marriages fall apart.
For sure. And that little story about the husband, instead of sending his usual list of complaints, he sent roses.
And it changed everything.
A simple, powerful shift. Think about Florence Ziegfeld, the Broadway producer.
Glorifying the American girl.
Right. It wasn't just about fancy costumes. He made his performers feel special, valued, beautiful. He paid them well, sent them roses. Genuine appreciation.
And that Paul Harvey story about Stevie Morris, Stevie Wonder.
Yeah. His teacher noticed his amazing hearing, appreciated that specific talent.
And it opened up a whole new world for him. Life-changing.
It really can be. Now, you might hear all this and think, okay, but isn't this just flattery, being insincere?
Right, like you're just bettering people up.
And Carnegie's very clear on this. Flattery's cheap, it's insincere, it comes from the teeth out. People usually see right through it.
Like that general, O'Brien, who said he feared flatterers more than enemies.
Exactly, because it's hollow. True appreciation, though, is sincere. It's heartfelt. It comes from genuinely seeing the good in someone or something.
So it's not a technique, really, but more like a whole different way of looking at people.
That's what Carnegie suggests. A new way of life. Actively looking for things to appreciate and then voicing it. It's something we often forget in daily life, don't we? With our kids, with service staff.
Yeah, we take things for granted.
And Pamela Dunham's story, the janitor who wasn't doing a great job.
Criticism didn't work?
Nope. But when she started finding small things to sincerely praise him for, his performance completely turned around. It's about acknowledging effort, progress.
Okay, so the second big principle here.
Give honest and sincere appreciation. Find the good and make sure people know you see it. Genuinely.
All right, let's move to the third key technique in this deep dive. This one is about really getting people to want to do things, not forcing them, not tricking them.
But genuinely motivating them. And this is where Carnegie's fishing analogy comes in strong.
Right, baiting the hook.
Yeah. You don't bait the hook with cheesecake because you like cheesecake.
Unless you're fishing for cheesecake fish.
Right. You use worms because that's what the fish like. It sounds incredibly simple, but it's about fundamentally shifting your perspective. Seeing things from the other person's point of view, Lloyd George knew this.
The British PM.
Yeah, he apparently got where he was, partly because he mastered this.
It seems so basic. But like you said, we mostly focus on our own stuff, what we want.
Constantly, we talk about our needs, our goals, our problems. Carnegie says the key is to figure out what the other person wants and then show them how doing what you suggest helps them get it.
Like the example with kids and smoking.
Perfect example. Nagging about health risks, maybe not so effective.
Teenagers think they're invincible.
Exactly. But linking it to something they care about, like making the basketball team or running faster, now you're talking their language. It connects to their desires.
And that story about Emerson trying to get the calf into the barn.
Oh, classic. Him and his son pushing and pulling brute force.
Calf digs its heels in.
Naturally. But the Irish housemaid comes along, understands what a calf wants to suckle, lets it suck her finger.
And leads it right in, effortlessly.
Because she appealed to the calf's want. Carnegie argues everything we do, even donating to the Red Cross, stems from wanting something.
Even charity.
Yeah, you want to feel good, you want to help, maybe you want social approval, or it aligns with your values, it fulfills some internal desire.
Perry Overstreet summed it up, didn't he?
He did. First, arouse in the other person an eager want. That's the core idea. If you can do that, you've got the world with you.
Andrew Carnegie got this early on, right? Even with his nephews.
Yeah, the story about the letter writing, he wanted them to write back, so he casually mentioned in his letter that he was enclosing a $5 bill, but didn't actually enclose it.
Huh. So they'd write back asking where it was. Clever.
Very. Appealed to their desire for the money. Stan Novak's story, too, his little boy Tim, who refused point blank to go to kindergarten.
What did they do? Force him.
No, they shifted focus entirely. Instead of pressure, they started talking excitedly about all the fun things Tim could do at kindergarten, finger painting, songs, making friends.
Building anticipation.
Exactly. They made him want to go. And by the next morning, he couldn't wait.
This works in business too, right? The hotel negotiation.
Oh, yeah, that's a great one. Carnegie wanted a lower rate for a series of lectures. Did he talk about his budget?
Nope.
Not at all. He focused entirely on the hotel's interests. How the lectures would attract educated, cultured guests, the prestige, the free publicity.
Framing it as a benefit for the manager.
And he got a significant discount, without ever mentioning what he wanted in terms of price.
Henry Ford said something similar, didn't he? About seeing the other guy's point of view.
Yeah, Ford called it the secret of success. The ability to get the other person's perspective and see things from their angle as well as your own. And yet,
We ignore it all the time.
constantly, think about that awful sales letter Carnegie critiques, from the ad agency to radio station.
Oh, that was painful.
It was all, we want this, we're the best, give us your business. Zero thought about what the radio station manager might need or want. Purely self-centered.
Contrast that with the freight terminal superintendent. His first letter was bad.
Focused on his problems, trucks blocking the loading dock, got no results.
But the revised version.
Completely different. It focused on the recipient's benefits. Faster unloading for their trucks, getting their freight moving quicker. Huge difference in response.
And Barbara Anderson applying for jobs in Phoenix banks.
Perfect example. Her letter wasn't about, I need a job. It was, here's how my experience can help you, the bank, achieve your goals.
That's why so many salespeople fail, isn't it? They're just thinking about their commission.
Totally. They're selling what they want to sell, not solving the customer's problem or fulfilling the customer's desire. People want to feel they're buying, not being sold to.
O&D Young's quote nails it too. Understanding others' minds is key.
And it's crucial to stress, this isn't manipulation, or it shouldn't be.
Right, it's about finding win-wins.
Exactly. When it works properly, like with Vermeulen's letter or Anderson's job or the insurance example, both sides benefit because their desires are aligned.
Tell me about the Michael Whidden story, the service station manager.
Right, older manager, station wasn't doing well. Whidden didn't criticize. Instead, he showed the manager a new, modern, successful station nearby.
Appealing to his pride, his desire for a better business.
Precisely. He sparked the manager's own desire to improve, making him receptive to new ideas.
The college kid trying to get a basketball game going.
Yeah, he just kept saying, I want to play basketball. No one cared what he wanted.
What should he have done?
Focused on them. Hey guys, want to get some exercise, work up an appetite, have some fun, clear your heads, appeal to their potential benefit.
It comes back to Overstreet again.
Always. First, arouse in the other person an eager want.
Like the underweight kid who wouldn't eat.
Yep. Parents nagged, pleaded, nothing worked. Then they realize he desperately wanted to be strong enough to beat up a neighborhood bully
Ah, so they reframed eating.
as the way to get strong and achieve his goal. Problem solved.
Or the boy wetting the bed.
Same principle. Shame didn't work. But focusing on what he wanted, pajamas like Dad's, his own big boy bed appealed to his pride, his desire to be grown up, that worked.
And the little girl refusing breakfast.
Let her help make it. Appealed to her desire to imitate Mom, to feel capable and involved. She ate it right up.
It taps into that idea of self-expression, wanting to feel ownership.
Right. William Winter said self-expression is a dominant need. If you can let others feel an idea is partly theirs, they'll embrace it much more readily. Applies in business, brainstorming, everywhere.
Okay, so the third fundamental principle, rounding out these core techniques.
Arouse in the other person an eager want. Understand their motivations, speak their language, focus on their desires.
So let's just quickly recap those three fundamentals. First.
Don't criticize, condemn, or complain.
Second.
Give honest and sincere appreciation.
And third.
Arouse in the other person an eager want.
They sound maybe straightforward on the surface,
Deceptively simple sometimes.
but as we've seen through all these stories, actually putting them into practice consistently, genuinely,
Yeah,
that can really transform your relationships.
absolutely. It's about shifting your focus away from fault finding, towards appreciation, away from just your own needs, towards understanding and meeting the needs of others. That's the foundation for building real connection and influence.
We really hope you take these ideas and, mull them over. Think about how you can actively use them in meetings, with your family, friends.
Pay attention to your interactions this week.
Yeah, you might have some real aha moments. See where a small shift could make a big difference.
Which leads us to a final thought for you to chew on. Think about one relationship, maybe personal, maybe professional, where you'd like things to be better.
Okay.
How could you specifically apply that third principle, arising an eager want, in that situation? What small change in how you approach it, focusing on their perspective, their desires, might just unlock something positive?
It's really about going beyond just, surface chat. Understanding what makes people tick.
Exactly.
We hope this deep dive gave you some useful tools, maybe a fresh look at some timeless ideas. So go out there and see what happens when you really focus on connecting the Carnegie way.
Thanks for listening. Visit our library and subscribe below for more book summaries. This has been a Sprint Reads production.